Envision this. A Russian combatant huddles in a narrow foxhole somewhere east of Prask. He can detect the faraway boom of shelling. He can sense the trembling of the ground under him. But the thing that frightens him most produces virtually no noise whatsoever. It weighs under a kilogram. It costs under $400 to manufacture. And it has been given one specific objective: to locate him and to neutralize him. That is the condition of the war zone in 2026. And today we are going to explain precisely how Ukraine has converted that small buzzing device into the foundation of a strategy so bold, so accurate, and so relentless that it could potentially decide the result of the most significant ground conflict Europe has witnessed in 80 years. Welcome to Bradley Madden. If this is your initial visit here, you are in the correct spot. We examine the critical developments influencing international security, warfare, and geopolitics. And we do not do summaries, we do substance. So if that sounds like something you desire more of, go ahead and subscribe to Bradley Madden right now. Press the notification bell too, because this narrative is developing rapidly and we are going to continue refreshing it as situations progress. Here is the context. From Sumy in the north to Detsky in the east, the identical dynamic is unfolding across the complete battle line. Russian troops gather. They charge. Ukraine confronts them with shelling, mortars, and progressively barriers of drones so thick and so devastating that the actual terrain those Russian combatants are traversing has turned into an elimination area designed for optimal devastation. That dynamic, already punishing for Russia, is about to become considerably worse because Ukraine has recently revealed a plan that, if implemented, will result in neutralizing 50,000 Russian combatants per month, not injuring them, not pushing them away, eliminating them, 50,000 every individual month. That objective originates directly from Ukraine's recently selected defense minister, Mailo Fedorov, who lost no time whatsoever declaring his goals evident in his initial significant public statement since assuming office in January 2026. Fedorov presented two primary goals for the Ukrainian armed forces moving ahead. The initial involves a comprehensive overhaul of the defense ministry itself, and we will explore that thoroughly because it is equally critical as the elimination figures. The second is the drone objective: 50,000 verified Russian casualties per month confirmed through footage. And when Fedorov discusses confirmation, he is not speaking casually. He means clip by clip, submission by submission, drone lens by drone lens validation that each neutralization occurred and has been recorded into Ukraine's armed forces data platforms. Last month, 35,000 were neutralized. All these casualties are confirmed through footage, Fedorov informed the Ukrainian citizens in January. If we achieve 50,000, we will observe what occurs to the adversary. They consider people as a commodity, and deficits are already apparent. Contemplate that declaration for a second. Fedorov is not outlining a remote goal. He is outlining the natural subsequent phase in a progression that is already happening, already recorded, and already alarming the Russian military leadership. Let us provide some figures around this because the information here is remarkable. According to President Vladimir Zelensky, who disclosed the statistics during his January 5th evening statement to the Ukrainian citizens, Ukraine's drone units neutralized 26,000 Russian combatants in October 2025. In November, that number rose to 30,000. In December, it reached 35,000, with every individual one of those casualties verified by footage evidence recorded by the drones themselves. We are observing a verified neutralization rate that grew by 4,000 in November and 5,000 in December, month after month, milestone after milestone. The direction is not unclear. It is a direct line aimed skyward, and if that line persists at the identical pace of expansion, Ukraine could reach the 50,000 threshold before the conclusion of April 2026. And here is where it becomes still more remarkable. According to coverage from United 24 Media, Ukrainian drones impacted a total of 106,959 objectives in December 2025 alone, a 31% growth compared to November. That figure does not merely encompass Russian combatants. It encompasses armor, protected transports, weapons platforms, munitions warehouses, and surveillance drones. Ukraine's robotic aerial divisions are not merely pursuing foot soldiers. They are methodically dismantling the complete foundation of Russia's military apparatus, one drone impact at a time. By the conclusion of 2025, according to statistics published at a recognition event reported by the Kyiv Post, Ukrainian drone controllers had neutralized or gravely injured more than 240,000 Russian combatants throughout the course of the year. Total verified objectives impacted 819,737. Those are not guesses. Those are not forecasts. Those are figures recorded in Ukraine's Delta platform, the unified repository where drone controllers submit recordings of their engagements, where those engagements are validated, and where the credits that fuel Fedorov's incentivization approach are distributed. You understood that accurately. Ukraine has incentivized the degradation of Russia's military, and it is functioning on a magnitude that should concern every defense analyst on the globe. We will detail precisely how that platform functions and why it is producing outcomes that nobody anticipated even 2 years prior. But first, because this is Bradley Madden and we believe in providing you the complete understanding, let us move backward and examine why 50,000 per month is not merely a catchphrase. It is a calculated assessment with a particularly defined conclusion. Fedorov has been straightforward about his reasoning. This is not merely about combat superiority. This is about compelling Vladimir Putin to the discussion table, not a discussion table where Russia can secure advantages and purchase time to rebuild. A discussion table where Russia is present because it has no alternative choice. The rationale follows this path. Putin can withstand minor setbacks. He can reframe them. He can conceal them. He can substitute the fallen with new conscripts and assure the Russian populace that the conflict is progressing favorably. But at 50,000 verified neutralizations per month, all captured on recordings that Ukraine can distribute at any instant, that storyline becomes unsustainable to maintain. The financial burden alone becomes intolerable. As documented by United 24 Media, the Russian administration provides a payment of roughly 15 million rubles to the household of each combatant neutralized. At 50,000 casualties per month, that expense alone totals 750 billion rubles every individual month. That is before accounting for the expense of finding replacements, preparing them, outfitting them, and processing the emotional trauma that spreads through Russian communities when that many individuals do not return home. President Vladimir Zelensky has established a definite objective, Fedorov declared publicly, to construct a framework that is capable of blocking the adversary in the atmosphere, stopping its progression on the terrain, reinforcing asymmetric and digital attacks against the adversary and its financial system to render the expense of conflict for Russia such that it will not be capable to endure it and consequently impose resolution through strength. Impose resolution through strength. Let that expression remain with you for a while. It is not a contradiction. It is a philosophy, and Mailo Fedorov is now the individual responsible for executing it. Here is a factual assessment that carries enormous significance in this setting. As documented by the KV Independent, Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Director Kilo Budanov verified that Russia's own enlistment objectives for 2026 total 409,000 combatants across the complete year. That calculates to approximately 34,000 fresh combatants per month. Ukraine's objective of 50,000 neutralizations per month is not merely forceful. It is arithmetically constructed to surpass Russia's capacity to offset its casualties. Every month that Ukraine achieves that objective, Russia's military becomes reduced, not expanded. And there are indicators, worrying ones, for Moscow, that Russia is currently failing to satisfy its enlistment targets. United 24 media documented, referencing an unidentified internal contact, that only 879 combatants executed voluntary agreements with the Russian armed forces in December 2025. That is fewer than half the 2,000 agreements executed in the equivalent timeframe of 2024. Our enlistment campaigns have fundamentally collapsed. Instead of the anticipated 30 to 40% growth, the reverse transpired. The contact said Russia's volunteer channel, which Putin has depended on to obscure the actual magnitude of his armed forces' casualties, is diminishing. The arithmetic that benefited Russia for so long is starting to flip. Now, if you are still viewing, and we understand you are because this is important, this is precisely the juncture where we request you to assist us. Keep continuing. Bradley Madden persists because individuals like you choose the decision to subscribe, to distribute, and to inform others that there is a location on the web that addresses these narratives with the thoroughness they warrant. If this examination is meaningful to you, press subscribe, inform a colleague, post a remark below about what you believe regarding Ukraine's 50,000 approach. We review every individual one. Now back to the narrative. The instrument that rests at the center of Fedorov's approach is the FPV drone, first-person perspective, a compact, swift, agile aircraft directed remotely by a controller wearing a visor that positions them virtually in the flight seat, figuratively speaking, providing them a live perspective of everything the drone observes as it pursues its objective. These drones are the fundamental explanation Ukraine's neutralization totals have been so elevated. They are affordable, they are rapid, they are remarkably accurate when managed by a proficient controller, and Ukraine has millions of them. According to a December 2025 analysis from Pravda, Ukraine's Defense Acquisition Agency furnished the Ukrainian Armed Services with 2.4 million drones throughout the duration of 2025. Combine with that 200,000 supplementary units that arrived through Ukraine's DOT Chain Defense Technology Network, plus pre-existing inventories from 2024, and you reach a quantity nearing 3 million drones in Ukraine's stockpile by the conclusion of last year. As documented by the KV Post in January 2026, Ukraine's Assistant Defense Minister Serhiy Buov declared intentions to increase that manufacturing total to 7 million drones in 2026. That is approximately 3 times the 2025 production. And approximately 95% of all drones deployed in warfare against Russia are now locally produced, according to VOI declarations delivered at a defense gathering in Poland in late January. Distribute 3 million drones across 12 months, and you obtain 250,000 drone missions per month. Even factoring for drones that fail that malfunction or that are intercepted or disrupted by Russian defensive technologies, that quantity is more than adequate to maintain and grow the neutralization volumes that Fedorov is pursuing. And Ukraine is not remaining stationary on the innovation front either. Boyev declared intentions to expand the functional engagement distance of Ukraine's drones from a present 20 kilometers past adversary positions to 100 kilometers. That is a 5-fold growth in tactical reach. It means Russian headquarters, supply centers, and marshalling zones that presently seem protected will not remain protected for much longer. That distance expansion is going to be reinforced by a new AI incorporation initiative. In March 2026, Defense Minister Fedorov revealed that Ukraine's Ministry of Defense would be providing a collection of drone engagement recordings to collaborating firms for the purpose of developing artificial intelligence engagement systems. According to coverage by the New York Times, the collection encompasses drone engagement recordings, observation footage, and captures of objectives performing evasive maneuvers, exactly the challenging scenarios that AI engagement systems require to develop from in actual warfare. Fedorov characterized autonomous platforms as the defining characteristic of upcoming combat and labeled artificial intelligence one of the essential domains of this rivalry. According to the Euromaidan press, drones currently represent more than 80% of verified adversary objective neutralization. AI-directed accuracy on top of that degree of combat supremacy has the capacity to be truly conclusive. The ramifications of that AI collection initiative are tremendous. When a drone can independently recognize a Russian military transport, differentiate it from a non-military one, and perform an engagement with minimal human involvement, and when that functionality is implemented across hundreds of thousands of drones concurrently, the character of the warfare transforms fundamentally. Russia cannot prepare its combatants rapidly enough to compensate for what it is suffering, and it cannot disrupt or deceive its way past an engagement framework that develops from every encounter and advances in real time. Now, the foundation of this complete operation, the framework that links drone controllers to their outcomes, to their incentives, and to the wider intelligence overview, is something Fedorov personally created years before he became defense minister. It is named the Army of Drones Reward Initiative, and it merits its own discussion because it is one of the most creative elements of military frameworks engineered to develop from this warfare. As documented by War on the Rocks and validated by Euromaidan Press, enrolled drone controllers submit recordings of their engagements to Ukraine's Delta platform. That recording is assessed and confirmed. Once validated, the controller's brigade receives credits that can be exchanged for replacement drones and supplies through Ukraine's Brave One market, essentially an internal acquisition system where combat effectiveness is specifically connected to provisioning. The credit amounts are defined: 12 credits for a neutralized Russian infantry combatant, 8 for an injured one, 25 for a neutralized or injured Russian drone controller, 40 for an eliminated tank, 50 for a missile launcher system. Among the greatest valued objectives presently accessible in the framework, a detained Russian combatant which provides 120 credits, and a downed Russian rotorcraft valued 100 credits. What this framework has established is an achievement culture within Ukraine's drone divisions that has no equivalent in contemporary military annals. Some of Ukraine's leading drone brigades have achieved frequencies where they are engaging Russian objectives every 6 minutes. Every 6 minutes. Fedorov outlined this at a recognition event in January 2026, where he displayed the Drone Army reward standings, a positioned visualization of each brigade's effectiveness, displayed openly, generating rivalry incentive to excel and to create. Contemporary combat is a contest of information, velocity, and accurate judgments. Fedorov published on January 26th, each of the recognitions is a tangible outcome on the war zone, which we extend to the complete battle line. That incentivization, paired with the quantity of drones accessible and the expertise of the controllers managing them, is the mechanism driving the 35,000 neutralizations in December. It is additionally the basis for Fedorov's assurance that 50,000 is attainable because this is not a framework being constructed from nothing. This is a framework that is currently functioning, currently delivering outcomes, and currently being refined month following month. But the drone initiative is only segment of the narrative because Fedorov is not merely transforming how Ukraine battles. He is transforming how Ukraine conceptualizes about battling, and that begins at the leadership. Ukraine's defense ministry has not consistently been a standard of productivity. The German Marshall Fund of the United States released a devastating evaluation in January 2025, observing that the ministry required safeguarding from itself. The previous defense minister, Rustem Umarov, had terminated the then director of Ukraine's Defense Acquisition Agency, Marina Bezukova, a modernization-focused administrator who had been commended by NATO and the G7 for her contributions upgrading Ukraine's acquisition frameworks. Additionally disbanded the DPA Oversight Committee, which had suggested extending her appointment. The GMF proposed the action was motivated not by strategic reasoning, but by influence from global weapons suppliers who had been marginalized by Bezrauva's modernizations. Bezrauva was restored by the conclusion of January 2025. Was removed by July. The disruption caused during that interval was tangible. Leadership changes generated turbulence that made Western collaborators anxious. According to Forbes, modernization initiatives were interrupted. The ministry's attention wandered away from what it should perpetually be, delivering the correct armaments into the correct possession at the correct moment with the minimum of resistance, red tape, and corruption. Fedorov was selected to correct that, and his method is systematic. He has declared a thorough initiative of organizational modernization constructed around what he terms comprehensive assessment, a foundational and complete examination of the ministry's institutional framework intended to remove red tape, eliminate tiers of hierarchy that delay acquisition and judgment-making, and redirect every section of the ministry on assisting active duty personnel, especially those on the battle lines. The motto he has selected for this modernization campaign communicates everything about his values: more innovation, fewer losses. Fedorov has additionally engaged outside collaborators to assist the evolution. According to the KV Post, the Defense Ministry is collaborating with the British Royal United Services Institute and the Centre for Strategic and International Studies, some of the globe's most esteemed defense strategy research organizations, to construct and confirm the modernization initiative. These are not symbolic affiliations. These are institutions with extensive knowledge in how contemporary defense ministries operate and what Ukraine's must resemble if it is going to maintain an extended conflict against a nuclear state with a considerably greater population. Among the particular undertakings Fedorov has described, a unified framework for monitoring munitions, which will provide the ministry immediate awareness into where ordnance and armaments are at any particular instant. Stronger coordination between Ukraine's offensive drones and its artillery brigades, establishing combined operations groups capable of synchronizing drone engagements with targeted artillery bombardment for multiplying impact, and the creation of a new domestically built drone engineered to rival with and eventually exceed China's commonly utilized Mavic system, constructed completely from Ukrainian parts. That final project is noteworthy because China's Mavic drones have been surfacing in this warfare on both factions, and diminishing reliance on internationally produced parts eliminates a significant weakness in Ukraine's logistics network. Fedorov is additionally the individual who directed Ukraine's wider digitalization program long before he joined at the Defense Ministry. Selected to the Ukrainian government in 2019 at the age of 28, making him at the time the most junior government official in the nation's history, he dedicated his initial years in leadership revolutionizing how Ukraine's governmental sector functioned. Paper-based documentation systems originating from the Soviet period were computerized. Residents transitioned from managing dozens of administrative clearances and in-person queues with all the possibilities for graft that entailed to finishing those identical procedures digitally through a unified electronic interface. As the Kiev Post documented, more than 90% of Ukraine's governmental administrative procedures were computerized under Fedorov's direction, practically terminating almost instantly generations of Soviet and Russian colonial service customs. The connection to what he is currently executing at the Defense Ministry is not indirect. Fedorov understands how to take an inherited framework constructed on secrecy and dysfunction, reveal its shortcomings, and reconstruct it around openness, innovation, and results responsibility. He has accomplished it previously, and now he is applying it to the organization that conducts Ukraine's conflict. That individual history additionally holds significance in another respect. Fedorov is from Zaporizhia, one of the territories that Russia has been targeting most intensely. Russian troops assert to occupy roughly 75% of the Zaporizhia territory by November 2025, and captured the Zaporizhzhia atomic energy facility early in the warfare. For Fedorov, this conflict is not theoretical, it is his homeland. And that changes the manner you approach reform. You are not improving an administration. You are constructing the apparatus that will expel an invading military from the territory where you were raised. It is worth stopping here to comprehend the complete progression of what Ukraine has constructed, because the perspective from beyond the warfare makes its accomplishments appear even more extraordinary. In June 2025, Ukraine's intelligence agency carried out Operation Spiderweb, a concealed drone assault that impacted Russian aviation installations across 5 provinces, covering 5 time regions from the Western territories, all the route to eastern Siberia. The mission utilized 117 drones hidden within timber housings placed on transport vehicles that were operated by uninformed Russian operators to their destinations. When the vehicle halted, the covers opened and the drones deployed. According to the SBU, the impacts compromised or wrecked sufficient aircraft to expense Russia roughly $7 billion and weakened and projected 34% of its long-range bomber squadron. It was, as multiple observers remarked at the moment, Russia's Pearl Harbor, except that unlike Pearl Harbor, it was accomplished by a nation with a portion of Russia's assets fighting a strictly protective conflict. Operation Spiderweb illustrated something that transcends the operational. It demonstrated that Ukraine's drone approach is not restricted to combat FPV missions. It reaches to extended assault capability, the capacity to impact the systems that sustain Russia's capacity to conduct conflict far past the combat zones, with instruments that expense a tiny proportion of what they demolish. And that strategic dimension is only broadening as Fedorov advances his 100-kilometer distance expansion program. On the existing combat zones, the circumstances as of late March 2026 stays severe. As documented by the Washington Times, Russia launched approximately 400 drones at Ukraine on March 24th, the biggest nighttime assault in weeks, succeeded by supplementary drone salvos during the daytime targeting Kiev. Ukrainian defensive systems, according to the Ukrainian Air Force, intercepted the overwhelming majority of those approaching drones. Meanwhile, according to the Ukraine Forum News Service, Russia's aggregate battlefield casualties since the beginning of the comprehensive invasion have now totaled approximately 1,292,770 troops. On March 26 alone, Russia suffered an additional 1,210 combatants neutralized or injured in operations. These figures originate from Ukrainian armed forces sources and should be evaluated with suitable skepticism. But even at a considerable reduction, the magnitude of Russia's personnel toll in this conflict is enormous. As the monthly neutralization statistics arrive, as the AI drone initiative progresses, as the distance expansion of Ukraine's offensive drones alters the landscape of this conflict, Bradley Madden will be here to analyze it for you with the thoroughness and the integrity that these circumstances require. If you are not subscribed yet, now is the moment. Press the subscribe button, activate notifications, and if this examination provided you something to contemplate, distribute it with someone who deserves to comprehend what is genuinely occurring in this conflict. Not the summaries, but the approach beneath them. We will see you in the following.